A beautiful morning to you, wherever you are joining the People's Daily today. The program is International Desk, and I am Mojisola Sholaja. Today we are taking a look at the Zambia 2026 Zambian general elections, which was held on the 13th of August 2026. The results are out, but the post-election crisis is what we shall be focusing on. And today I have in the studio with me Ambassador Emmanuel Uwamba. Ambassador Emmanuel Uwamba is former Zambia's High Commissioner to South Africa, former Zambia's Ambassador to Ethiopia, former permanent representative to the African Union, and the spokesperson for the Tonze Pamoze Alliance, which featured Brian Ndubule as official candidate. That is the major challenger in the election. Good morning, Ambassador Uwamba. Glad to have you on the program.
Thank you, Mojisola, and I'm grateful. And good morning to your dear audience. I would like to share our views with the people of Nigeria about the state of our country.
Okay, let's begin with the election. The presidential election is what we are focusing on, the results of the presidential election. It was observed by not just Zambians alone. The European Union and other international agencies also witnessed the election. So the people voted for president, members of parliament, the councillors and council chairpersons, and the incumbent Hakainde Ichilema of UPND was re-elected with 60.49% of the votes, and his challenger Brian Ndubule of NRP-UP with 37.87%. Turnout was 57.23%. And what do you have to say about that? The election was free, was fair?
Thank you very much. All major mission observers have declared that these elections were not free and fair. They were characterized by mass irregularities. A lot of issues were noted. For example, the disruption of the counting of votes, the presence of the military who stormed totaling centers across the country on the day that Brian Ndubule, the opposition challenger, was leading. And the subsequent announcement has been challenged by the opposition. Brian Ndubule immediately issued a statement that he would not concede defeat in light of the massive irregularities that are taking place in the election. And both the African Union Observer Mission, the European Union Observer Mission, the SADC, AISA, and others who participated in observing these elections raised a lot of red flags in constituencies, sometimes that had more people that voted for the president than the people that were registered as voters. With these irregularities, the elections cannot be said to have been free and fair, and that is why, as the opposition, we decided to challenge the election. And even when we decided to challenge the election, the authorities in Zambia closed the courts of law to time it in a manner that the period in which the Constitution provides for the petition to take place lapses. So we have a new constitutional crisis where the courts were closed and the online process in which to petition the results, the online portal, doesn't work. And we had a way in which one of the ordinary nationals decided to launch a petition to challenge the presidential election by emailing the court documents to the Chief Justice's personal account. And that's a matter that Zambia is dealing with today, because they have to determine if filing of court papers to the Chief Justice's personal account suffices as a process that can be admitted to court, because the courts were closed, surrounded by soldiers.
Okay, what are Zambians in all of this? What are they saying about the results? The reactions of Zambians to the results of the election?
Yeah, this is the first time, Mojisola, that a presidential candidate has been pronounced as winner, and there are no celebrations whatsoever across the country. There were isolated celebrations at the venue where the announcement was made by his supporters, but the country remains mute. The country has encouraged the opposition to challenge the elections, and they hope that the Constitutional Court can nullify these results in light of the mass irregularities that I just cited.
Okay, now, before the fallout between you and the president, let's talk about his achievements, the first term. What has been his achievements so far?
First of all, remember he came in 2021 on a wave of popularity, especially from young people that believed that he will restore democracy, will restore the rule of law, that he will respect human rights. And being an economist, being a businessman, there was hope that he would ensure that the economy could benefit ordinary people and that he would create jobs. He will bring local and international investment. There was so much hope on him, but what has happened is totally the opposite. Since he came in office in 2021, things are worse off than they were 5 years ago. The cost of living, Zambia is facing one of the worst cost of living crises. The human rights record is extremely poor, as cited by the United Nations Human Rights Council, by Amnesty International, and by Human Rights Watch. He locks up political opponents. He has hijacked the largest opposition party at the time, the former ruling party, the Patriotic Front, and he has put to jail many of his political opponents under the guise that he was fighting corruption. So his record has been extremely poor. He's of course celebrated by the IMF because he went to the IMF and got a loan from the IMF, and they say he has stabilized the economy and he has brought inflation rate from a two-digit figure to a single-digit figure, and that since the COVID era crisis, since the COVID crisis, he has now put the economy on the path of trajectory of economic growth of about between 3% to 5%. So he has a good record from the IMF, but he has a very bad record from our people that have not seen any benefits to them. They've seen a man who said you will not contract any new loans, obtain fresh loans like the ones I've just stated from the IMF. That is why his party and his presidency is currently facing an existential crisis in this past election.
Okay, we, just as you said earlier on, that the courts are shut, the courts are not open. So what is the next step? You have filed the case, and I learned the court actually said, yes, that has been received, but what is the next step now?
So the Secretary to Cabinet has announced that the inauguration of the President will proceed next Tuesday, 1st September 2026. We as the opposition are protesting, and the people of Zambia are protesting. We, the opposition, have written to the African Union to tell the African Union that the President has broken the African Charter on Democracy, Election and Governance. This charter demands that the judiciary must be independent and must be allowed to hear an election petition. It demands that there should be no soldiers in polling centers and polling stations. It demands that no inauguration should take place until all legal disputes regarding the presidency are resolved. But we are alarmed that the government has decided to proceed with the inauguration as announced by Secretary to Cabinet, that it will take place on Tuesday, 1st September, without resolving this legal crisis that has emerged, where the opposition has announced that they want to challenge the courts of law, to challenge the election of the president, to bring to light the mass irregularities that took place. But the authorities closed the courts so that the opposition and others could not access the courts to file their petition. We currently have political tension at fever pitch, and we've been appealing to President Hakainde Hichilema to allow the legal challenge to take place, to stop interfering with the judiciary, and to stop interfering with the electoral process. But this is where the country is as of now.
Okay, now I read about the Tanzanian vice president stepping down, and I began to wonder, Zambia, Tanzania, what is the correlation, what is the relationship between the two countries to warrant the vice president stepping down from office? Can you shed light on that?
We have such a good relation with Tanzania. It's a sister republic to Zambia. Many people remember the days of liberation struggle, that Julius Nyerere, the founding president, and our founding president, Kenneth Kaunda, pioneered the liberation, especially in Southern Africa, pioneered the campaign to release Nelson Mandela. The two countries have worked very well in the last 60 years. In fact, because we are a landlocked country, we've always accessed the seaport for our imports and exports through Tanzania, where we share a pipeline and we share a railway line. We have such cordial relations. But the relations have since fallen. When President Samia Suluhu won elections on the back of a bloody elections, where authorities took away the lives of many youths that were protesting. Many leaders in Africa didn't go to that inauguration. Our president went to that inauguration and commended President Samia Suluhu, and a lot of people looked at that in a very bad way. Since then, their relationship have gone very, very strong. Even in this election, information emerged that the sudden resignation of the vice president of Tanzania, although there was a rift between the president and the vice president, we understand the spark could be related to matters between Zambia and Tanzania. Social media in Tanzania, in Dar es Salaam and Nairobi, have been speculating that Tanzania sent troops to Zambia to help quell in case there is violence or in case there is protest, and that secret deployment sparked the resignation of the vice president. But officially, the vice president has resigned, without citing that particular reason. But if you scan the social media in Dar es Salaam and Nairobi, you see that somehow it is related to Zambia. It's a matter we are yet to confirm.
Okay, thank you so much for clarifying that. I appreciate that. And I want us to go back to the case of the courts, the non-availability of the courts to attend to your cases. You have said it, that you have written African Union and others. What is the next step? What are the other options at your disposal? The president will be inaugurated for his second term come 1st September. The courts are closed. What is the next step? And what exactly do you want? I'm talking about opposition generally. Do you want another election, or you want the votes to be counted again? What exactly do you want?
The demand by the opposition is very clear. Nullify this election. The irregularities are massive. You do not send the military to storm collation and totaling centers where they participate in the alteration of results. You do not break the chain of custody of ballot boxes. Those fundamental issues that regulate elections have been breached. The results have been amended willy-nilly without regard to what the people voted, abusing the will of the people. We think that the elections are so desecrated that they can't stand to produce a legitimate president. And this is such a shame because Zambia has such a good record. You know, our country has never had civil conflict, has never had war. We've been at peace. We're a country where the opposition have won elections and the ruling party and the incumbent president has surrendered power to the opposition. Look at our elections in 1991. A statesman in Kenneth Kaunda, such a major statesman, loses an election to someone, an non-entity, Frederick Chiluba. But Dr. Kaunda was gracious enough to surrender power and give it to Frederick Chiluba. A few years later, Rupia Banda in 2011, very gracious diplomat, good president, posting good economic growth, lost an election, and he graciously surrendered to the opposition leader, Michael Chilufya Sata. In 2021, the incumbent, Edgar Lungu, doing very well, but lost an election. He surrendered power to the current president, Hakainde Hichilema. And we are therefore very shocked that President Hakainde Hichilema has broken this process, is failing to honor a distinguished record that Zambians have, and he has decided to cling to power. He has decided to unleash the military on the streets. He has decided to allow the military to interfere with our elections. He has soiled the good record that Zambia has in the region. And you keep on asking, what do you do? It's so strange for the people of Zambia and for the opposition. For us, we've had free and fair elections, and the winner takes it and there is acceptance. If there is no acceptance, the challenge goes to the courts of law, where the courts will determine and resolve the matter. And we move on with a new president who's then sworn in, and we wait for the next 5 years. But in this election, the things that are happening are totally unprecedented. And Motisola, I'm lost to say what will happen tomorrow, because the political tension is so high in our country. An election has been stolen, and they've unleashed soldiers on the streets. And the theft of this election was so blatant because it was before the eyes of all the major mission observers like the European Union, the African Union, the COMESA African Union mission, the SADC mission observers, and others, including the local observers. These facts I'm stating are glaring to all. They are not isolated to the opposition or to the spokesperson. They have been reported by all observers. And that is why we are demanding that this election must be nullified. And the African Union must step in immediately to stop this inauguration. Because when you go with such potency and latent political pressure, you just don't know what can happen to the country.
Okay,
peace and the need to keep peace and national security requires that you prevent conflict in advance. There is a conflict case brewing in Zambia in light of a stolen election.
Now, while you wait for the AU's response, EU's response, and others like that, the inauguration will still take place September 1. What will be the way forward?
We will continue to fight in the courts of law, and we will continue to demand that the president is an illegitimate president, although he wants to take power by force. He'll be reported by the African Union as one who has taken power unconstitutionally, and he will be like any other African leaders that has suspended the constitution and forced their way into his second term. It will be literally a coup d'etat because the hallmark of everything he's doing is going to unconstitutional change of government. His mandate expired. He's supposed to be re-elected, but he has manipulated the electoral process so blatantly. He has abused the Electoral Commission. He has closed the courts. And by the way, our presidential candidate survived an assassination attempt. He sent in military to take the life away of our presidential candidate and his running mate. You must have seen international media that reported that on 14th August there was a military raid on the home of the candidate Brian Mundubile, where a former cabinet minister was killed. His name is Mutotwe Kafwaya, and is a former minister of transport and communications. After the killing of the minister and that illegal military raid, another news that you must have gotten is that our presidential candidate and his running mate have run into the United Nations compound to secure their safety and to protect their lives. And up to now, they still remain holed up at the United Nations compound. How has government responded to this? Government has now come up with a phantom lie, a bogus story, that the opposition were fomenting a rebellion through a military takeover and that they invaded the home of the opposition to recover arms and ammunition. A total lie. Witness counts. Everyone says this is just a total lie by government, who are now claiming that the opposition want a militia. We're setting up a militia and they send people for training to Russia.
Okay, Ambassador
we have
Wamba.
dismissed these assertions very, very strongly, that there is no militia that has been formed at all. We've always pursued peaceful protest.
Okay, Ambassador Wamba, let's quickly, let's wrap up the program with your message to the people now ahead of the September 1 inauguration of President Achilinda. There must be peace. Peace is certain, it is sacrosanct. So what is your message to the people, briefly?
Our message is very brief. You voted, we told you to protect the vote, you protected the vote. Now protect the results. An election is being stolen before you. You protect the results. Thank you very much, Mujisola.
All right, thank you so much, Ambassador Emmanuel Wamba. We thank you for your time with us, and we pray for peace, not just in Zambia, but everywhere across the globe. Okay, that brings us to the end of the program International Desk for today. We've taken a look at the Zambian President General elections. We talked about the post-election crisis and the need to avert crisis protests in that country. Ambassador Emmanuel Wamba, the spokesperson for the opposition party, especially the main challenger, has already said they are calling for a total nullification of the election. What happens next? Time will tell. We thank you for your time with us. Do stay with us as we bring you other interesting programs on the People's Daily. I am Mojisola Sholaja. Do enjoy the rest of the day.